Today is the day that we're going to create our fish dish out of clay. This is an example that you see here. This one has already been painted. So I'm going to start off by giving you a slab of clay. That is a flattened piece of clay that looks like this. You will come to me with your placemat, and I will lay it on your placemat, and then you'll be able to carry that back to your seat. Now once you have your slab, you'll be choosing a fish tracer to help you trace the fish onto your slab so you'll be prepared to cut it out, because the first step in our process is to carve the fish out. So I'm going to lay this on my slab, and I want it to fit, so if I have to turn it a little bit diagonal to make it fit, that's okay. In my tool bin, I have an opened paper clip and I have a strong toothpick. You can use either one to carve your fish out of the clay. I'm just going to use the paper clip. Now the important thing to remember is I'm going to follow the shape of the tracer, but I want to make sure that the paper clip is touching my canvas placemat as I go, because I want to be cutting out. I don't want to just be drawing a line into my clay. My intention is to cut it away. So I'm going to put my paper clip down in, and I can feel that it is touching the table. Now I slowly follow the outside shape of my fish. And you see how I'm just dragging the paper clip along, and I can still feel that the paper clip is touching the table. See, I am actually cutting through. So I'm going to take my time, go all the way around. Now sometimes I am taking some of the extra clay that has gathered on my tool. I clean my tool off a little bit. It makes it work better. Here's the fin. Okay, now I've cut all the way through, and you can see that I am able to pull these pieces away. When I lift this up, I am left with my fish slab. Okay? Now these extra pieces of clay, we might be using these for something, so I don't want you to gather them up and crumple them up like you would with scrap paper that you're throwing away. I want to leave the clay flat, but I can put it into my container. I'll just lay it in here so that I can put the lid on and make sure that my clay doesn't dry out. When I'm ready to use that clay, I'll get it back out again. Okay? Now the next step in my process is to smooth my fish, because when you cut it, it might get a little bit raggedy along the edges. And this is why we have a very small container of water on your table. You will dip your finger into the water and use that watery finger to just smooth the edges of your fish. That's the side, all the way around as best you can. I'm not adding a whole lot of water. If I added too much, my clay would get very muddy. That's why I don't have very much water in this bowl, because it doesn't take a lot. I can also smooth the top of my fish, just to make sure there aren't any wrinkles there that I don't want. I think that looks pretty good. Okay. Now this is a great outline for a fish, but obviously it's not done yet. This fish is going to need details and texture. This is where I think it would be best to use your toothpick, because the toothpick will act like a pencil and you'll be able to draw lines into this fish. And you have other tools too, like popsicle sticks. Popsicle sticks, I will show you, can be pushed into the clay very gently to make what looks like a scale. So that might be handy too. So let's see. I think I'm going to put my line here to show where this fin is. Now notice I wasn't pushing all the way down. I don't want to cut that fin off. I just want to draw a detail line going across. If I put another one here and one here, Now you can see I've got the fish's body here, a fin, and a tail fin. Okay? Here's the mouth. We might put a little detail there. Now the eye, it could be drawn in, or you could add the eye as an additional piece of clay, which I think you might want to try. So let me get out a piece of that clay that I had put away. Okay, here it is. I'm going to take some of this, and I'm going to roll it with my fingers into a sphere. Okay, I think that's going to make a pretty nice eye. The problem is I can't just stick that eye on like that and expect it to stay, because when this clay dries, that eye will just pop right off. We have to do something very special to make sure that the eye doesn't pop off. And to do that, I'm going to take my toothpick again, and I'm going to put some little scratches in that eye, right at the bottom of the eye. And I know I want to put the eye right here, so I'm going to make some marks there too. I'm just roughing up the surface of the clay so that it doesn't look so smooth anymore. Now you see this goopy stuff? This is called slip. It's a mixture of clay and water, and it sort of looks like gray yogurt. If I put a little bit of this on my finger and I rub it off onto my eye, it acts like glue. Think of this slip as glue for clay. Now I put these together and I push down a little bit, give it a little twist. Now that eye is going to stay because I did the scratching and I used the glue, the slip. Okay? And maybe I'd like to put an extra detail on that eye like this. And then I can continue adding more textures on my fish. I can draw lines on the tail fin any way that I like. I mentioned about these popsicle sticks. If I press just part of the popsicle stick into the fish body, you see how that looks like a scale? If I did that all over the body, it would be a really awesome texture. This one does the same thing, except it makes bigger scales. Okay? Notice again, I'm not poking all the way through. Now some of you might like to add an extra fin on the body, and you could draw that, or you could use extra clay if you have time. So I'll get a little bit of extra clay out. This is like a slab of clay. It's still flattened. So I can draw an extra fin like a triangle shape, like this. See how I've cut that out? This is a triangle slab. And that triangle could become a fin. But what do I have to do to make sure that it's going to stick? I've got to do those scratches again. Nothing fancy about that. Just roughening up the surface. And I know I'm going to put it about right here, so I'm going to put some scratches there too. Get my slip and put it on there. Looks kind of goopy. And press it in place. Perfect. I know that fin is going to stay. And I could add details to this fin too. So I will be so interested to see how your fish is decorated with textures and lines so that it looks unique. I'm not going to finish mine because I don't want to take up all your time. So now that we've added our texture, we'll be near the end of class and it will be time to get this to look more like a fish dish, because our next step is to lay this into our bowl. The bowl looks like this. Now, me and an assistant will be coming around while you're working, and we're going to ask you to let us turn your fish over for a second so that we can write your first letter of your first name and the first letter of your last name. Those are your initials. And we're going to put a teacher code on there. That just lets us know whose class your artwork belongs to. And your initials let us know that this is yours when we want to give it back to you. Okay? So now, when we're ready and I ask you to put your fish into your bowl, it's going to lay like this. And I'm just very gently pushing it in. I don't have to smush it in, and I don't want to ruin all the work that I've done, so I want to be really gentle. But do you see how the fish is starting to curve a little bit? like a dish, because this is utilitarian art. We will be able to use this fish dish to hold things. The fish is going to stay inside this bowl to dry. So that's how we're going to end class, with a fish in the bowl, just like this. Now, later on, after all the fish are dry, I will put them in that big oven called a kiln, and that's going to make the clay get hard. And then I'll be able to give it back to you so that you can complete step number 5, which is to paint your fish. And again, here were my examples that I've done. Now your teacher will talk to you about cleanup.